our first live event of the month where we're showcasing women in pharmacy. So with it being International Women's Day on Monday, at the RPS, we thought we'd dedicate the whole month of March to celebrating women in pharmacy. So my name's Aman and I'm the Head of Professional Belonging at the RPS, and I'm really delighted to be hosting today's panel, where we'll be looking at women in leadership across different roles within pharmacy. So I'm joined by an incredible panel of women who are Dr. Rafia Jamil, who is a senior practice support pharmacist in Wales. We've got Jaspreet Sohal, who's a chief pharmacist at Bradford District Care NHS Foundation Trust. Kalpana Daya, who's the lead education and development technician at the Royal Marsden, and also the co-founder of the Pharmacy Technicians of Colour. And Busola Adioja, head of nuclear medicine and radiopharmacy, chief pharmacist, radiopharmacist at Barts NHS Health Trust. So welcome everybody, and I'm loving the titles, and I'm loving the fact that we've got 5 women of colour today to talk about women in leadership in pharmacy. So the aim of today's panel is to showcase the women in leadership roles across different levels of pharmacy, and to highlight the everyday leadership, so the operational leadership that pharmacy staff are doing, and the skills and challenges that come with them and that we're learning. And so, because when people talk about leadership, I think everyone suddenly thinks of director, head of roles, which are a great aspiration. However, we will have to kind of go through a path of operational leadership, and that, you know, where we can showcase our skills. And so I'd like to showcase the great women who are doing that level and delivering patient care to the front line, especially through a global pandemic. And so, and the skills that we've developed, and then the challenges that come with it. So before further ado, I'd just like to ask everyone to introduce themselves and to just talk about their role and the background. So I'll start with Kalpana, if you'd just like to give us a bit about who you are.
Okay, my name is Kalpana Daya, and I'm a qualified pharmacy technician. I currently work at the Royal Marsden as the lead education and development pharmacy technician. A little bit about my background. I joined pharmacy about 30 years ago. Wanted to do a pharmacy degree, but didn't quite make it there, sort of thing. And the reason for that is I am a practical person rather than academically, as I put it. And through that, I've sort of managed to develop my career and started in community and then went into secondary care. It was quite a challenge, the transfer of, you know, the roles, but gradually I sort of did a further qualification in the technician course to make sure that I understood all the hospital aspects of it. And then as I went through, I went up the leadership ladder. I did an MSc in leadership management and leadership in healthcare science, and undertook several operational roles, and finally now landed in a sort of an education and development role, supporting with professional development, but equally also looking at project management as well. So that's a little bit about myself.
Brilliant, thank you, Kalpana. And Busola? Oh, you're on mute, Busola.
In the meantime, hello everybody. My name is Busola Adioja. Currently, I'm working at Bath Health as head of nuclear medicine and radiopharmacy. I'm also the lead pharmacist for radiopharmacy, which some people title it as chief radiopharmacist. Before I have this job, I've been a chief pharmacist 3 times in 3 different organizations, but while I was in one of the organizations, I decided I wanted to do something different. It's either going to 2 different routes, which is completely nothing to do with health. But then I decided to stay with health. I went to do my MBA, which is Master of Business Administration, in terms of being able to aspire into a very senior management role within the NHS. And that's exactly what I did. And I stumbled across this job I'm currently doing now, as the head of nuclear medicine, which is it's nothing to do with pharmacy, it's unrelated in any way whatsoever, but still part of a very senior role within NHS and within the organization where I work. But it does have the element of pharmacy to it, the radio pharmacy aspect of it, which is one most people usually not aware of. And we were just talking about this before we came online in terms of being a pre-reg and have the opportunity to be able to kind of do part of your pre-registration as part of it. I was lucky. I did my pre-reg at Guy's Hospital 20-something years ago, quite a long time ago. But Guy did have a radio pharmacy at that time, and I spent some time there. So, and also as a she pharmacist, I have kind of, because when you have a radio pharmacy department, if it's not managed by a pharmacist, it's actually managed by she pharmacists, because it's really important there's a pharmacist connection to it. But currently, because I'm a pharmacist and experienced one, so I just kind of manage that directly. But in most organizations, you never see a pharmacist. It's very uncommon to see a pharmacist managing it. And it would be a good thing for people to go into. So, I mean, that's one of my aim of being on this platform, actually to promote there is opportunity for anybody as a woman, or it doesn't matter who you are. You can have a cross session to do other things within the NHS, and the opportunity is there for whoever you are to be able to do that. And I'm a very good example of that. Brilliant.
Brilliant, thank you. At Jaspreet?
Hi everyone, so I'm Jaspreet. I'm a chief pharmacist in Bradford. I work for a mental health and community trust. So our trust looks after all mental health services in Bradford, which is inpatient and community. We also look after district nursing, podiatry, health visiting, all sorts of community kind of services. So my portfolio is quite wide. I kind of have to know a little bit about everything, which is really hard. So I'm a mental health pharmacist by background. And I guess my leadership journey is probably a little bit different to a lot of people's, in that I became a chief pharmacist at quite a young age in quite difficult circumstances. So I was kind of a standard mental health pharmacist in a kind of a senior level about 5 years ago, nearly 5 years ago. Had a kind of standard career pathway. I graduated, did my postgraduate diploma, did my postgraduate certificate in psychiatric therapeutics. I was well on my way to becoming a specialised mental health pharmacist. And that time, my predecessor became poorly. He had a brain tumour. And very quickly, I was asked to act up into his position and kind of skip a couple of bands and go into his role. And due to the structure of the team, I didn't really kind of have a choice, and I didn't want to let people down. And at that time I thought, oh yeah, he's going to get better. He'll come back. I'll do this for a little while and everything will be fine. And I'll go back to being a normal pharmacist, which is kind of what I'd never really thought about being a chief pharmacist. Unfortunately, about 9 months later, he died, and the role came out. And, you know, I thought, well, I've done this for a little while now, you know, I might be able to do this. I interviewed for it, and there was a interview process, tests, interview, all of that, and I actually got the job, which I wasn't expecting. I got the job over other people who'd applied who had a lot more experience than me in lots of different ways. So that was really good, I guess, for me. And I guess my leadership journey has been quite difficult in that I've had to learn a lot of things really quickly on the job, and not really had that kind of senior mentor behind me to be able to kind of teach me those things. So yeah, that's kind of my journey, and now I'm nearly 5 years down the line of being a chief pharmacist, and I'm still learning. So yeah.
Brilliant, thank you, Jaspreet. And Rafia?
Hello everyone, my name is Rafia and I work as a senior GP practice pharmacist in Powers Health Board in Wales. My story is probably different from everyone, standard story in the UK background pharmacist. I came to UK around 10 years ago as an overseas qualified pharmacist. I've done my Doctor of Pharmacy back in Pakistan, and at that point all I wanted to do was clinical pharmacy, not an option available in the country I qualified. So I started looking overseas. There were plenty of options on the map, and after looking into it thoroughly, and some innovative things pharmacists were doing, including being a prescriber, really caught my eye. And I was like, rather than doing an MD, which was my original plan, change the pharmacy and go to medicine instead completely, I thought I'll try that, because I don't want to waste the degree of 5 years I've done already and just build on what I have. So that's how I came to UK, did my OSPAP, which is Overseas Pharmacist Qualification Program, which you have to do before you can apply for pre-reg. Did that, and then I had to, for migration reasons, I had to leave the country after passing my exam and reapply for a different visa to come back and start working. So that's when I came to Wales for the first time, and I've been here since. I've worked as community pharmacist, and in that community years, I have done management, store level and leadership. I've done project management and implementation at Wales level as well. And then at that time, I was also doing my clinical diploma, because that was the ultimate plan for me to move forward. And as soon as I did that, I started looking, working in a GP practice on my day off. That's how I started into a cross-sector kind of role, just to understand what this role involves. Do I have the skills, which skills are missing, and how do I can sort of gain them as well? So yeah, it's been an onward journey. I have to start from zero twice in my life, purely because of being an immigrant. So there are lots of barriers to cross, which unfortunately, in my experience, have still not been recognized. So I think I'm really happy to be here today to talk about and resonate and connect with you if you're one of them. And I'll be happy to sort of help and support wherever I can. So thank you for the platform, Aman.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rafia. Thank you, everybody. Everyone's journey is so different, which is really important, because everyone has their own challenges and, you know, life experiences that they need to work with. So we'll go into some of the questions that we've got covered, but just anyone who's listening, if you wanted to add any comments or add any questions, please do, and then we can always come to them at the end. So my first question to the panel is, so what challenges have you faced in your career? Have there been certain stereotypes or expectations that you've had to overcome? And that could be professionally or personally, like cultural expectations that have been placed on you. So, and Rafi, I'll start with you, because you've already alluded to them being an immigrant, as you know, and having to start from scratch twice. So, so yeah, over to you, Rafia.
So I think the first basic hurdle I came across is I came to UK because I wanted to be a clinical pharmacist, and my understanding was hospital pharmacy will offer me more clinical opportunities compared to pharmacy. I think that by design, that's wrong, and that's not how the profession should be. One person shouldn't feel if they have to do one certain aspect of your profession, it's limited by a sector. So that was my first ever experience to say, okay, so I have to find a hospital pre-reg job to be able to become a clinical pharmacist. And then I realized within the first month of landing in the UK that I can't do that, because I'm an overseas pharmacist. My course started in September, which means I came over in September, and OREL recruiting process for hospital pre-regs has been completed a month before I even came to UK to qualify. So that was the second hurdle. So by default, I had to either go via community pharmacy and get the late spaces which have been left empty because either people didn't want to apply for those places, they're far off, bad reputation, or all those sorts of reasons, which at that time I had no idea about that they actually exist. So so that was the second thing. There was a late recruitment in September, I think, for 10 places via OREL, and from my whole cohort, the only 2 people who got the hospital pre-reg were the people who have already been in UK for over 5 years, have already significant dispensing experience, so they kind of knew the pharmacy world in the UK and kind of have an advantage over rest of us who have been in the country purely to qualify as a pharmacist. So again, by design, there's a flaw in the system, which unfortunately until last year, from my knowledge, still exists. So I have pointed it out on different platforms to say, your application process, whether or not you give the tier 2 visa to overseas pharmacists is irrelevant, because they can't come and get that visa. They're not here in the country at that point. They might not even know they need that tier 2 visa to do the pre-reg. That was the case with me as well. So there were lots of hurdles at that point. That I think that was the time I got to know about RPS, because another pharmacist I was sharing my problems that I actually can't be in the country to take the exam because my visa is going to finish a month early. And obviously that's a big problem. No one's going to let me in the country to take an exam for a course I have spent around 10 grand and 9 months of my life. So anyway, that was the time I was sort of directed towards RPS, and I've been in touch with them a number of times during that year. They were very, very helpful, but unfortunately at that time they were only offering visa advice and help to participants who were doing a master's. The course I was doing as a master's rather than a diploma, and I wasn't doing the master's purely because I wasn't actually aware it's available as a master's as well. So you can imagine a person coming so new into the system has no idea about these basic differences and what might be available. If that advice was available maybe beforehand, I might have been able to make a better choice to say, well, actually doing a master's will be better for me professionally and from immigration point of view compared to this. Anyway, so got through all those hurdles. Like I said, my visa application to stay in the country a month longer was rejected. But during that rejection time, we get sort of a cooling off period in which you can leave the country, and my exam date was in that time. So it was pure luck, I think. Anyway, did the exam and had to leave the country straight away. I couldn't even register. So did all of that, then came back, applied for another visa, came back, started again. The reason I say that I have started twice is because when I came to the country for the first time, I literally came with £400. That was my saving after paying for the rent and for the tickets. That was all I had when I started the course. When I left the country, I had a house here, a studio apartment we used to rent. We kind of had to literally leave, just lock the door and leave the country. That was it, not knowing you will ever be able to come back because you're relying on a visa application. Anyway, so we came back and started again. At that point, I came to Wales again, and the arrangement for where I was going to live and all of the arrangements have been made via internet overseas. I hadn't seen the place I was going to come and live. So started again. And just carried on from there. There have been lots of, then following those, keeping those immigration problems aside, I think there have been few problems I faced in the pharmacy world itself. I did find it difficult to fit in the beginning. I tried to become a vegetarian because I eat halal food. And I just used to announce I'm a vegetarian. It was easy fit. There have been times when you do feel that you have to fit in whether or not you feel that you belong. And I'm very happy that we're talking about it, and it's not a topic which is sort of associated with people of color or people of certain cultures. I think everyone has the right to feel to belong, no matter wherever they're coming from. So anyway, that was that. The other problem I think I faced, and kind of a deal breaker for me in the job I was in, that I was told I am too inexperienced to get the job I was going for, despite the fact that I was doing a job of that level of seniority already. So I think there was a stereotype there that you have to have this many number of experience to be able to go for that job. And I, by default, don't agree with that. Yeah. I may not. With all due respect, you might have gotten to that role when you were 40. I don't want to be 40 when I get that job. And I want you to tell me whether or not I have the skills and abilities. Don't tell me that you're not 36 yet.
Yeah.
If you don't see those abilities in me, fair. Tell me how I can get them. And it's my job to fill that gap. So that was another problem. I ended up leaving that job for that very reason. I think I am on a journey to be who I want to be, but I still find it a very uphill struggle still. I feel that I completely agree that it's my journey and I will get out what I put in. But I do feel that you kind of have to be expected to be a river to make your own path, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I always, people have been talking about, I have had these discussions many times, and people say how they go about fair recruitment. And then you get two candidates applying. One is like me, who has a total UK experience of 6 years. Whether or not I've been qualified as a pharmacist for 10 years, that's different. But my UK experience is 6 years. And then you get someone applying for the same job who is born and bred in the pharmacy system for a long time. And if you're judging them for the same system, that's like giving someone, that's like comparing two people who are running the marathon, one in slippers and the one in proper running shoes. You can't say that the system is fair unless you can treat both those people based on the abilities they have and the potential they can bring.
Yeah, no, that's true. Brilliant. Thank you, Rafia. Sorry, I'm just conscious that of time, but the key thing there is, having the information as an overseas pharmacist, and also the system, acknowledging your prior experience before the UK and the value that brings. And this isn't the first time we've heard that. There have been other overseas pharmacists who've also expressed that disappointment with the way we assess people and give jobs. So Jaspreet, I'd just like to bring you in now. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to add that you've had to overcome as well, personally?
Yeah, I identified a lot with what Rafi was saying around, you almost have to whitewash your ethnicity sometimes to fit in. And I definitely feel like I've had to do that. And I think that's something that perhaps many of us have experienced. Often kind of at our regional kind of national meetings, I'm often the only kind of chief pharmacist who's a person of colour, or the only woman of colour sometimes, or a lot of the time. And I find that hard. And I don't know whether that's an internal feeling. I think of an internal feeling that you look different to everybody else, and that's something that I work hard at to overcome, because I've earned my place at the table, and I find that hard sometimes. I think the other thing that I find really hard is my own expectations and my own kind of doubts and worries, and people, what I worry about, or used to worry more about what people thought of me. I've had comments in the past, what she had to do to get that job at such a young age. How did she manage to get there? And I know that my journey's been different to other people's. And sometimes I think, do I deserve my place? And then I look back and I think, no, actually, I've worked really, really hard to get where I am. And I interviewed and I got this job on my own. And sometimes people say things that make me wonder, like, think about how I actually got here. And that's been a barrier for me, I think, because then it makes you doubt yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess as I've got older and I've done this job, the longer I've done this job, the less I care about what other people think, because I would say my work speaks for itself. I've had quite a number of successes in the job that I do. I've managed to grow my team. We've been nominated for awards. So I'm really proud of what I've done, and that I would hope that speaks for itself. And I would hope that nobody would then question, how has she managed to become a chief pharmacist at 32? It was only because her boss died. I've had that comment before, and that's not nice. I appreciate that, but yeah, I worked hard to get where I am. So those are some of the barriers that I've kind of faced.
Brilliant. No, thank you, Jaspreet. I can really resonate with that. I've had it myself, and especially when you look younger as well. It doesn't help. But no, I can completely resonate with them. And Kalpna, from your perspective as well, are the barriers the same from a pharmacist or from a pharmacy technician, or are they very similar?
So there are some similarities. So I would say, as a pharmacy technician, I have 3 barriers. I am a pharmacy technician, working in a pharmacist world, and that in itself is a challenge. I'm a woman and I'm of colour as well. So I have 3 barriers that I have to work extra hard at as a pharmacy technician. I think the challenges that we have as pharmacy technicians, is that we have to prove what we do. We have to show the skills. We've had to work extremely hard to reach a point. So over 30 years to what we did 30 years to what we are now, the roles are developing, but at a slower rate. I've had challenges from an ethnicity point of view, from colleagues, around, English not being my first language. Also from patients, which is quite surprising as well. Patients have sort of challenged me about my ethnicity, have sort of said, you don't feel, when it's a hot summer day, patient said to me, you don't feel the heat because you're from a hot country, But it's being able to professionally deal with that, and it's drawing on your leadership skills to manage that. I think the other aspect is the challenges are that as a a woman from a cultural background, it is about, you know, looking after your family, and that expectation of, you know, making sure, you know, that you're able to work, bring an income in, but support everybody else as part of that process. As a woman, I think the biggest challenge is that, you know, especially in a leadership role, you know, is about how you're understood. So where you're maybe quite direct or forceful to somebody, you're seen to be quite bossy or rude. However, if it was a man, it'd be slightly different. There'd be assertiveness. So, you know, there's 3 different types of barriers that I've had to come across as a pharmacy technician. But the biggest challenge, I think, is about, you know, how job roles are advertised these days. You know, they're not about, you know, skills generally. What is it that you're doing from a leadership point of view? It's really about, you know, whether you're a pharmacist or a technician, and, you know, you will find lots of senior roles at pharmacist level.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kopna. And Basola.
Yeah, so I didn't. Yeah, no, it's actually quite interesting listening to everybody. I think if I was to be say, I don't know everybody background, but I've been in the NHS for so long, and I can kind of hear you. It's a bit disappointing to hear some of the things that people are saying. The reason why I wanted to be part of this is because I was saying to you guys at the beginning, say, actually, I'm going to be removed from pharmacy, but I'm still doing radio pharmacy because I still want to become part of that profession. I haven't done it for so many years, so for 20 something years. So I didn't want to let that go. That's the reason why I took that job. But at the same time, to be able to do something and bring something into it and continue to promote pharmacy. In terms of, I'm really surprised to hear some of the things that I heard about overseas pharmacies coming. I mean, me as a chief pharmacist, I actually went looking for them to come to my hospital and to come and work. And I know I've developed quite a few. So I will say this for other people, that's what I said at the beginning, if you're knocking on that door, don't give up. Keep knocking on it because somebody will listen to you. That is number one I wanted to say before I talk about my own story, because there is people there that can help you. If you have to write directly to a chief pharmacist, anybody that write to me when I was a chief pharmacist, it doesn't matter. I look into it. I don't give it to the next person, my deputy, to look into it. I did it myself. I want to hear their story. I want to know. I remember one student write to me, say he wanted to work in my department. And the senior person they wrote to said to them, say, oh, you're only year 1. You can't work in pharmacy. And I'm saying to myself, what more do you need? You're doing a pharmacy degree, you're year 1. There is no any qualification you need to be able to work in pharmacy that is more than that. At the same time in promoting, I've been promoting pharmacy technician ever since I can remember. I'm one of the people that write the framework, how they become a checker and that kind of stuff. So all these things, hearing it, to not seeing a lot of people like myself out there supporting people and bringing this to the table, it's a bit, but one thing I will say to you guys, things are changing. Because when I became a chief pharmacist, and I remember then, I probably one of the women, maybe not the only woman that first became a chief pharmacist, because I actually serve in London as a pharmacist under chief pharmacist who's a woman. And that shaped the way I move in my career. And like you, Jazz, I never wanted to be a chief pharmacist either. But when I got that job, I took it with both hands and I just did it. I started as a deputy. But at the same time, there's always people out there that could help you, listen to you. So don't give up. Now, I do a lot of mentoring. And I know quite a few people now who's become a chief pharmacy that I mentor. And I know people who become head of pharmacy in a very senior position that I've been mentoring. And I haven't given up on that. So look on LinkedIn. Anybody, for the people that are listening, if you're younger and you're still trying to develop your leadership, say, speak to the other people who are in that senior position, and just you're a good example. I mean, I like you, when I started out, because I'm sitting down, none of you can see me right now. I'm only 5 foot nothing. That tends to be a problem. I walk into the room, nobody expects me to know anything until when I open my mouth. And I always turn out well as well. That tends to be a problem. What would she know? She probably spent all her time getting ready and she wouldn't know anything they have to talk about. So all these kind of things, but I tend to block them out. I actually pretend as if I wasn't Black. I mean, one thing you said, yes, that I think is very important. For myself, I wrote that down, that if you're doing something, let your work speak for itself and nobody will bring you down because you become a force to be reckoned with. It's true, we don't have to be working so hard to be able to prove ourselves, but it seems that that's what we have to do. I remember starting one job. I came in there and I wasn't quite senior. I was when they used to do ABC job. And I know somebody doesn't talk to me at all for no reason. She just would not talk to me. So I left that job. I went somewhere else. Then I came back to the same organization as a D grade. And I'm now more senior than this person. And they're white. And I came back. It became talking to me because I knew what I was talking about. The job I was doing, there's no way you could do without me. I became her friend that invite for a party for somebody from not talking to somebody you've been invited out. So it's true what you said, and I've seen the evidence of that. And I'm just saying to people, please don't give up on that. And some people, you talk about being young, and so when I say how long I've been in the NHS, people are always surprised because they think some people. My first job as a chief pharmacist, I went to a meeting. They thought I was a pre-reg. So the person that came with me as my deputy said, "Oh, is this one of your pre-reg?" So you get this, and I actually didn't take it very seriously. So you get all these things, but please do not allow it to block your way because they're irrelevant. They're not important. One day somebody will listen to you. Use the link. Use the link and anywhere, even in LinkedIn now, I have loads of people just contact me directly. They read my profile. They say, we find it interesting. Can you give us some career advice, which way we should go? I don't know them from anywhere. And I continue to chat to them through that. So just because somebody say you can't do something doesn't mean that you cannot do it. You can do it. Even if you just come from overseas, there is always a chief pharmacist out there that will listen to you to say that they will help you out. And now I can tell you, in terms of diversity within pharmacy, I now know a lot of ethnic diverse chief pharmacists. When I first started out and did it in 3 different areas, and I know what my challenge is. I walk into that meeting, they have a regional meeting. Sometimes we might have just 3 ethnic minority within about 20 people sitting there as a chief pharmacist, but it is changing and I can see the increase and we need to continue to promote that. And I think it's really important.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bisola. You've naturally gone into the next question I was going to ask, but it's all about challenging and pushing, because obviously hearing the barriers and the impact that can have on an individual, it makes you feel like you don't belong and you don't want to go for that job. Because why? And also, as a person of color or female, why should you have to try harder than your male and white counterparts to do the same job? You know, and how do you so how do we encourage women to, you know, you've already alluded to some of those things, of applying to those leadership roles and getting that representation across the board, and the importance of allyship, you know, across male allyship and, you know, race allyship, and how do we do that?
Yeah. I would say one thing that I did pick up right from the beginning when I was just a junior pharmacist, and I think I was lucky as well, because I rise up to senior role very quickly. Within 18 months, I was equivalent of AB after I qualified. So that's how quickly I moved in my career. But one thing I did do for myself is get a mentor. It's very important. I didn't just have a mentor from my profession. In fact, the CEO of the hospital where I was working at that time, I did some sort of auditing, and we became one of the best, and I led it as part of the service I was running. And the CEO at that time came to pharmacy department to find out who led it and start talking to me and said to my boss, we need to encourage this girl. We need to support her because she's going to be one of the leader of the future. And that's how I started. When you said that to me, and I said, oh, what can I do? For all of you that is here, I've now done 4 different master degree, including business degree. But one of the things she made me realize that day was the importance of having a mentor. I chose from my profession, I chose from the master degree that I did, and I also chose from somebody outside of my profession that I know I can talk to, that will tell me the truth and actually put it into perspective. I think that is important. And whatever you also need to be able to elevate yourself, either because we're all very experienced sometimes. And I think one of the partners said it earlier, that there's certain qualification you have to be able to do something. They don't tend to recognize experience. I do, but most people don't. What you might want to do, if you have that experience, find the qualification that match it to be able to take you. Because when you go and do that, it doesn't take you time to actually master it. When I was doing my master MBA, it's the most difficult thing you could ever do. But because I only did it about 3 or 4 years ago, I finished, but I'm already very experienced. I just walked through it without doing very little work, because I have the knowledge and the experience. That's what I would say to people. If you have the knowledge and the experience, if you don't have it as well, still do it. I don't think we're going to come out of this for a long time for things to change overnight. And I recognize somebody say something earlier about you have to be this age or that age. That was in my era, that time. They don't even look at your qualification. If you get a diploma, they don't want to know. You have to be 10 years in that job before anybody recognizes you, even if you don't know how to do the job. And I have given somebody who say band 7, AB, from 7 to AB. I recognized the skill and I said, this girl is good. It's better than one of my AB. I didn't see any reason why I couldn't give her AB. When I did that, some of my peers didn't like it. As a senior people say, why will you promote somebody? And I said, well, if they can do the job, it doesn't matter how long they've been qualified, because the same thing happened to me. Yeah. So why could not anybody do that? We need to continue to change the mindset of everybody, and need this kind of platform as well. Amen. And thank you very much for inviting me. Although it was last minute, and I think it's really important. This is the way that we need to do it. And I think the RPS as well and GHPC need to do more, and encouraging people, give people the platform or mentor they can attach people to, that can support them and guide them through. People who's been through that, they can put you in the right direction and guide you. And I think that is really key.
Brilliant, thank you. Jas, have you got any pointers or things that we could challenge the barriers and encourage people to take up more leadership, well, women to take up more leadership roles?
I think one of the things is to just do it. Just, you know, don't think too much about applying for that job. You know, we get caught up in our heads so much all the time. You know, oh my God, I can't go to that interview because, you know, those people are more experienced than me, or I can't do it, I've got too much to do at home, or I've got a family. And you know, just apply, just see what happens, get that experience of interviews, if nothing else. I think that's one thing. I think the other thing, and just building on what Basolo said, which was brilliant, by the way, I love listening to you.
Thank you.
Asking for help and speaking to people and getting a mentor. You know, it's not just about just even a mentor, just going out there and speaking to different people across the organization, women, you know, and don't be shy. I found that actually when you speak to people, most people want to help. They want to give you that advice, and don't think that they don't want to. I think I get a lot of people think, oh, well, I think it's quite a British thing. I don't want to, they won't have time for me. But people will, they'll find the time, or they'll make time to have a chat with you, even if it's just a 5-10 minute conversation. You know, don't be shy to ask for help or email that person. You know, even if they can't reply straight away, most people will reply. So just don't be shy and just do it.
Thank you. Kopna?
I mean, obviously I agree with the Solar and Jaspreet of what they've said. Additionally, I would just sort of say, you know, it's looking at people that are in these positions and inspiring yourself to that and believe in yourself as well. So, you know, whether that's another pharmacy technician, another pharmacist, or the CEO, you know, it's looking at women and saying, you know, they're in these roles, they've done something right, and I can do this. And it is about building your self-belief as well. And also, as part of my role, one of the things that I do is, you know, we do talk about asking for help. I generally do help people. They do come. And we do link in as pharmacy technicians. We have lots of networks where we support each other, and then you get your contacts that way. So I think it's really important that we do engage with each other around these things, and, you know, believe in ourselves. Some days I have to get out of bed, I have to put a smile on my face and say I can do it, you know. And, you know, I say some days, I think quite a lot of days, but I think we still need to keep fighting and raising our voice. Equally, I don't think we should step on each other either. You know, we should unitedly, and, you know, support each other, but don't, you know, undermine each other at the same time. And I think that's really important. That's what makes women in leadership very strong, and it gives us the power that we need.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kalpna. Yeah, raising each other up while we break those barriers is what we really need. Rafia.
I think majority of whatever advice or experience I'll have, it has been shared by my 3 peers wonderfully, and I couldn't agree more. I'll echo what all of you have said. Just 2 things really, just to summarize what I want to say. One of them is, I read somewhere, if the opportunity doesn't knock, build a window. And that's exactly what I've been doing all my life. I don't wait for the opportunity to come to me. I know what I want to do next. I meet those people who are doing that job, and I go to them to say, tell me how I can get there. There have been things said to me which have been offensive, borderline offensive sometimes, and there have been helpful advices as well. And like Basola said, there have been people who have nothing to do with medicine or pharmacy. They're just women leaders. And I like to point out an organization, Academy Wales, which have been fundamental in my journey in leadership, because I've been able to connect with lots of women leaders who have helped me through that process, even saying, well, actually, you need to do this if you want to do that, because they might not be connected at this point, but you need to go through it. And the only other thing I think I want to say is, what you allow will continue. If that's not how you want it, you are the person to say no to it for the first time. And it may not be the same organization, it may not be the same person, but that journey is for you. So just continue that journey. Let your success speak for you. You don't have to go to that person to prove that you were worth it. Just to give you a very, very tiny example, because I'm conscious of time as well, and I have to leave for my second job in 15 minutes as well. But that's just to say, I have been given a 360-degree feedback on my CV by 2 completely different people. I was told that was my CV. I was told by one person who was signed up, who was sort of allocated to me as a mentor, as an overseas pharmacist, to help me apply for a pre-reg job. And he said, no one want to know that you won some competitions. This CV is not going to get you anywhere. I remember coming home that day and thinking, I'm not going to get a pre-reg. I don't even know how to write a CV. And anyway, I had a circle of support around me. They helped me through that day. And 3 days later, I got a feedback from the person who had applied for job for. He wanted to do an over the phone interview because he was overseas. He did the interview and he said, it's one of the most impressive CVs I've come across for a pre-reg job, because obviously I had the experience beforehand as well. But I just want to say that one negative feedback, don't let it be everything. It will always be there. I had 3 interviews in the past 6 months. 2 of them gave me a feedback to an extent that one of them, I couldn't go for a job for personal reason, and the other one for a different reason. And one of them said to me, I think you need interview skill support. I'm the same person. It's the same level of job, but that's the degree of feedback you get from different people for different reasons. So don't just hang on to that negative bit. It may still be correct, because you may still want to be addressing those sides that one person is pointing out, but that may not be the whole story. The whole story is you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rafi. That's so important, because it's so easy to get bogged down with one negative comment and forget the rest of everything and that context that it sits in. We've gone over a half an hour, but this conversation has been incredible. So sadly, I need to wrap it up. But we've had some really positive comments in the chat boxes. So really a lot of support for Rafia and Jaspreet. Keep doing what you're doing, and don't let the negative people get in the way. And yeah, there's a lot more that we can do as leaders and managers in the system to support those opportunities. And we've not had a chance to talk about it today, but the NHS England and Improvement, APTUC and RPS have worked together on an inclusive pharmacy professional practice action plan, which is looking at addressing health inequalities, but also the profession and how we can increase that representation across the leadership piece. So, and within the RPS I&D strategy, so there's lots that we're doing and that the profession can do from the top level to enable that, because it can't always be, you know, from the bottom up. That change needs to happen, and some of the work that we're doing, the workforce pledge, will enable that too. So I just want to say thank you so much for this conversation. It could keep going. I could do this for a whole afternoon, but I just want to say thank you to everyone and your valuable input today. We have got more sessions coming up in the month. Next week, we're doing women in tech and breaking down barriers in working in technology and pharmacy, and then looking at women in the COVID pandemic and the caring responsibility that we've had to take on. So we'll have those every Wednesday for the next 3 or 4 weeks. So, but thank you again, everybody. Yeah, so, and thank you for everyone who's watching as well. So take care.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to see you all. Bye.
Bye.